Hello and welcome back. Today is Monday, September 2nd, and it's Labor Day. So actually, tomorrow is my wedding anniversary. My husband and I have been together for 11 and a half years, but we've been married for, as of tomorrow, 8 years. Wow, crazy. Okay, anyway, for this video I have some finished objects for you. I'm looking at my notes. Some natural dyeing to share. I want to talk about the natural dye make-along, of course. I have some shop news, and at the very end I will announce the giveaway winner, which, by the way, I feel like when people ask you to answer a question for a giveaway, often they don't really care about the answers to the question, but this one was really fun to read. I asked the question, what was your first podcast that you ever ran across, knitting podcast? And yeah, the answers were really fun. And there's a lot of suggestions and ideas for podcasters to watch. And I assume that you guys are into video podcasts because you're here. So, but yeah, I'm going to choose the giveaway winner at the very end of this video. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so I am not totally sure where to start on this pile of finished objects, but I just wanted to show you all the colors together because it's very autumnal. Maybe we'll just start from the top. I actually made 2 of these bibs, and I've made these before and shared about them before, but the 2 that I've made in the past, I gave away to another mama who was expecting a baby around the same time I was. And I did that knowing that I could just make these up really easily because they don't take hardly any time at all to make. One thing that I do want to note is that when I shared about those bibs in the past, someone made the comment and it stuck with me. I can't remember who it was, but it was brilliant. She said that instead of making a button on one side, you can just slip one of the ends into the buttonhole while it's on your baby. And I've been doing that and it works perfectly. It stays really secure, but you don't have to be concerned that if they get caught up on something that it'll hurt them, because it'll just come right undone. So I have been using this one a lot. It needs to be washed, and I need to make several more because I don't know what happened to the second bib. I did a huge search for it yesterday because I knew I was gonna record today, but yeah, one is not enough. My baby is definitely at the age now where she's just getting drenched, so she needs something there to protect her. And I find this to be really unobtrusive. The wool doesn't bother her. I think this one is made out of, I think one of the scrap yarns that I used was a superwash and one was a non-superwash. And it doesn't itch her or cause any kind of, she doesn't seem to notice it at all. So next on the pile I have kind of 2 of the same thing. These are the sport weight socks that I was working on in the last episode. I finished both of them and I've actually worn them already because we had a pretty chilly day a couple weeks ago. And they are so comfortable. They stay up really well. I don't know if it's just because of the particular gauge that I was using and that how tight they are. They're not that tight, but they are really secure on my feet. Probably more secure than any other pair of socks I've ever made. So, and that could be a lot of different variables. I think sometimes it's the fiber itself. Sometimes it's how tight the sock is on your foot. Sometimes it's the height of the instep. For me, I've always found that doing a heel flap and gusset works better for my foot shape, but what works even better for my foot shape is when I do a garter heel flap and gusset. So that's what I did here, and they're so cozy. I love these. And if you want more details about what yarn I used and what needle size and stuff, you can check out either the previous episode or my Ravelry notes. But it was basically 2 strands of hawthorn yarn from Knit Picks, which is fingering weight sock yarn. And it created this really pretty subtle marl. So of course I had to make another pair. And this I made using naturally dyed yarn. One strand was avocado dyed yarn this was like one of my very, very first skeins of yarn I ever dyed using a 75-25 superwash merino. And then this one was a tweedy sock yarn that I dyed with walnut. So they were both just in my scrap bag because I have a lot of fingering weight yarn. I'm trying to make as many sort of utilitarian, useful accessories and things as I can. And for me, that's socks. This is a shorter pair. I just did kind of above ankle length, still using the garter, heel flap and gusset. And then for this one, instead of just doing straight stockinette throughout the whole sock, I did a 3x1 rib. And I haven't worn these much yet because I casted off the last stitches last night. But I did the thing where I finish one sock and wear it on my foot while I work on the other one. And they seem really cozy and like they fit really well. So for this one I used a slightly different stitch count. I casted on 50 stitches for this pair, which was fine, but when I went to divide for the top and the bottom to do the heel flap, I had to choose which needle had 26 stitches and which needle had 24 stitches. So for this sock, I casted on 52 stitches, and so both needles had 26 stitches, and I didn't have to decide whether the top of my foot or the bottom of my foot would be the one that had more stitches. So, and actually it was the bottom of my foot that I chose to have the 24, the fewer stitch count, and it worked out really well. These fit really well. So if I find that these don't fit, then maybe that was what the difference was. I don't know. So yeah, very cozy socks. I am addicted to making thicker weight socks, and I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm probably not even going to worry about stitch patterns or anything, just going to keep doing like straight up stockinette or easy 3x1, because I can get a pair of socks knocked out really easily in like 2 days. So my next finished object I shared sort of as a finished object last episode, but I still had a lot more to do on it, and I just didn't, I don't know, I should have just shared it as a work in progress. So yeah, this is the latte coat made out of my coffee dyed yarn. And I added these wooden buttons, and you know, the buttons are kind of funny, but I really like them. I think they're, you know, what else are you going to use them for but something that kind of is a sweater jacket. I've attached the pockets, but I haven't blocked or washed this sweater since doing that, so I'm not sure if they'll probably expand a little bit. But with the addition of the buttons in the pockets, it has lent this garment a lot more structure for my daughter, and it makes it so this hood, which is insanely oversized, it's given it less ability to kind of pull the sweater down off of my daughter's shoulders and stuff, because it was really, like, if you look at the hood, it's basically half of the garment, and it carries a lot of weight. It's amazing how much doing some finishing work on a garment changes the piece, because I tried this on my daughter before I did the pockets and the buttons, before I wove in everything, and I also thought it might just be too big for her to wear right now, because I did knit this 6-year size. She's only 4. But now, after doing more work on it and having her try it on and just kind of test it out a little bit, I am very pleased with how this turned out. And I can see her using it a lot for the sort of transitional weather, like autumn and spring when it's not too cold. And she likes it because it's really soft, which is not the case for this next project, which is also my final object. This is the Loki 2.0 now donning sleeves and button bands, and it is steeked. Da-da-dun. And I did that on film so I can kind of share part of the process with you, even though I totally did it wrong. For this pattern, she has you do one row of, or is it a column, of purl stitches down where you're going to steek. So to make sure that I was cutting in the right spot, I flipped the garment inside out and cut right in the middle where the purl stitch was, which was obviously knitted on the wrong side. Everything was going really well until I hit the colorwork section, and then the yarn was a little bit less secure, and there were some pieces that weren't held by the reinforcement that I put in, which obviously I did something wrong there. So I did a lot of research before I did the steeking. I watched the Very Pink Knits video on crocheted reinforcement, and that's what I went with, was a crocheted reinforcement. But then the instructions said to do it a little differently, and for some reason I just didn't quite do it properly, because where there's one color everything is nice and secure, but right where I got to the floats it wasn't necessarily the case. So I basically just went in with a needle and thread and made sure that nothing was going to move anywhere. And I think it would have been fine, but I just wanted to make sure. So nothing is moving now. Everything's going to stay where it is and probably felt up really nicely. But yeah, I did totally mess up. But I told you I was going to share about the process, whether or not I messed up or not. So here you go. Let this go to show you that you can still mess up and salvage the sweater, and just fix it with needle and thread, and everything will be fine. It's really not that scary. Pattern suggests after you go through and make your crocheted reinforcement to continue crocheting to make the button bands, but I just decided to pick up stitches on each side and do a ribbed button band instead with my knitting needles, because I don't know, I thought it would look cleaner and go with the cuffs and the neckline and the hem. So, and I've tried this on my daughter and it looks amazing, but she does not like how scratchy it is, and I know that it's really hard to tolerate scratchy wool when it's warm outside, so I will wait before I try it on her again until it's nice and cold. This is really kind of the test to see how well she's going to handle a woolly wool. So wish me luck, because it's really cute. So I've been doing a lot of natural dyeing, not just with yarn, but also with silk and with linen. My daughter has been playing with play silks so much lately that it's inspired me to dye more. I dyed play silks in the very beginning of my natural dyeing sort of adventures, and I sold some in my shop, and ever since then people have been asking if I'm gonna sell any more, and I just never got around to it, but I am working on some right now. I've got these that I just pulled off the drying rack, and I have some more that are drying on the drying rack right now. So my plan is to have some of these available in the next shop update, and I would like to potentially sell some of them at a discount. Some of them just have some imperfections, and I think that it might be fun to kind of like either over dye this and go crazy with lots of experimental techniques and maybe do some painting with iron or to incorporate other colors. I don't know. These were both dyed in the same dye bath, but these were dyed first and then this was dyed in the exhaust bath. These were dyed with Quebracho, by the way. And I've decided I want to start dyeing fabric again because I kind of dabbled with it in the very beginning. But I want to do it now because I want to make a quilt for my daughter's bed and maybe for our bed too. So I have a bunch of linen that I want to dye. But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun dyeing all of this stuff, and I just put another batch out there to dry that I dyed with goldenrod and iron, and it made a really pretty green color. I dyed some silks with that, and then I also dyed some yarn, and I got just a really cool, I don't know, it's like an army green, so it'll be really fun to see how that color dries up. Last week on Instagram I shared a video of dyeing a couple skeins of yarn with sappanwood or Eastern Brazil wood. I shared how the yarn, after going through the dye process, was this kind of orangey red color, really light. And then I dissolved a little bit of washing soda in water, which raised the pH, and it didn't take much. You can see the change happen instantly where the color just, I guess it cools down quite a bit, and turns into this kind of like purpley pink color. And while you can see that change happen right away, the real change happens when you go to warm it back up on the stove. And then it's like a chemical reaction happens or something, where that color was really light before, it becomes really intense on the skeins, and then you get quite a rich pink. At least that's been my experience with using Eastern Brazil wood. So I shared those skeins on Instagram, and then I kind of talked about how I was going to keep experimenting, and I did. I ended up putting those skeins back in water and kind of experimenting with doing some low immersion speckling with extracts of logwood and cochineal, and I didn't really love how that turned out. So then I went and added a little bit of iron to the dye bath, and this is what I got. These crazy purpley pink skeins with like little speckles everywhere. I'm happy that I kept experimenting with it, though I sort of wish that instead of doing anything with the extracts, that I just added iron straight away just to see what would happen. So that's what I'm going to try next time. I'm going to change the pH with the washing soda like I did last time, and then I'm going to go ahead and just add iron to the dye bath and see what happens. And then I was sharing another experiment on Instagram about some skeins that I was dyeing with whole marigold flowers. As I mentioned before, our summer has been really mild, and so one of the things that hasn't grown well that I've had an abundance of in the past is marigolds. So I basically just did a harvest of everything that we had growing in our garden, which wasn't much. It was enough to kind of do one little experiment with a couple skeins. So I basically kind of spread out 2 skeins and put flowers kind of under the skeins, over them, try to kind of space them out. Filled it so it was just topped with water, and then put it over the heat and let the color from the marigolds kind of just concentrate on the skeins. I didn't stir it up or anything. And I put it on low heat until it was kind of started to bubble, and then turn it off. And then I did that like 3 different times over the course of 2 days. And then I was kind of looking at the skeins and I wasn't loving what I was seeing, so I went ahead and added some iron to the dye bath. Marigold typically turns things yellow. Sometimes you'll get like a green, but if you add iron, you'll usually get really nice greens. And I got these really nicely like variegated skeins. Or I don't know if you call it variegated. I'm not sure. But, you know, the color is concentrated in areas it's warmer, where the flowers were actually touching the yarn. It's sort of a gray green. There are areas where it's darker. Usually when I do an iron dye bath, I will pour some from a jar of rusty nails that I've been dissolving for ages. But in this case, I dissolved the tiniest little bit of ferrous sulfate in a jar with hot water. And then I just kind of selectively spooned over some of the iron water on certain areas of the yarn in the dye bath, so it wouldn't be fully mixed, and so it would concentrate on certain parts of the skein more than others. And I love these. I love these. I would definitely do that again. It uses up so much less plant material, and the results are really cool. That's the thing with natural dyeing. If you don't like what you got the first time, you can just keep experimenting. And then I've never experimented too far where I couldn't, I don't know, salvage something. So yeah, I've been having lots of fun. I am planning on having a shop update this month. And right now I'm thinking it'll be Saturday, September 21st at 9 a.m. If you are interested in checking out that shop update and you have not already signed up to my newsletter, please do so. There's a link in the description box below, or you can go to my website homepage, and at the very bottom there is a sign up form for my newsletter. That is where I will announce that it's happening, that it's official, and kind of give you a peek at what is going to be in the update. So the final sort of natural dye related thing that I want to talk about is on both Instagram and on Ravelry, there have been other natural dyers who have shared their experiments with hibiscus. And in the last video, I shared some skeins of yarn that I dyed just with hibiscus flowers. I didn't use a mordant. I didn't use any modifiers, nothing. I was just curious what the color would be if I put yarn in a dye bath with hibiscus tea, essentially. I do not expect that this would be color fast. It's not something that I'm going to sell in the shop. I'm going to continue to work these skeins of yarn and over dye with different colors that are color fast. I'll probably put them in with some walnut, actually. But they are sort of the control. And then I got in contact with some of the people who have been sharing their results with hibiscus and who have gotten greens and blues. Overwhelmingly, they said that they used stainless steel pots and that they used alum as the mordant, and that they used kind of like a low, slow, kind of long dyeing process. So I tried to do that, but I got this, which is a little different, more orange, more beige, I'd say. Kind of like a warm brown almost. So then I was like, okay, well, I'll try again. And in this case, did the hibiscus with the alum, and then I separated the skeins and used vinegar in one pot and washing soda in the other for different ranges of acidity. And both of those turned out exactly the same, just about. Certainly not green or blue. So, you know, when it comes to natural dyeing, there's all different kinds of variables. But I think my next step would be to try a different source for hibiscus flowers, because I know that depending on when you harvest, you can get different colors. Depending on, I don't know, probably the region where it's harvested, the hardness of your water. I don't know, there's lots of different variables to consider. But if you are somebody who's gotten greens or blues and you have any insight as to what I can try next, I would love to know. Just because I want to crack this code. It's really similar. These results were really similar to my second results. They're all kind of that warm beigey color. So anyway, the natural dye knit along is going really well. We are about 2 months into it, and there are already several finished objects on Instagram. and I've seen some on in the Ravelry group as well. I confess I've been having a hard time kind of keeping up with the Ravelry stuff, just because with taking care of my 4-year-old and my newborn, I have very short bursts of time where I can be online, and usually Instagram is the easiest thing to open up and kind of flip through. I'm definitely trying to get myself to be more active with checking the Ravelry threads at least 3 or 4 times a week. So last but not least, let's go ahead and pick a giveaway winner. There are 342 posts, but the first one is mine, so let's do 2, 342, and the winner is 342. Really? How often does that happen? The winner is the last person who posted. Sarah Sue 1101. That's you. Okay, so Sarah Sue 1101, if you could send me a Ravelry message with your details, and I will get that yarn to you. Awesome. Thanks again to those of you who participated in the giveaway. Again, the answers were really fun to read. I will see you guys in the next episode.